Hey everyone, it's Michael and Colleen from FWDfuel Sports Nutrition. Today we're talking about elimination diet for inflammation. So, hot topic, everyone wants to know how do we reduce inflammation. We hear a lot of athletes talking about it. We have 4 points for you today to help you get on an elimination diet for inflammation, get you feeling great.
It's true, and there's so much good and so much bad that's said and swarmed around elimination diets, but at the end of today's video, you'll know everything you need to know in regards to an elimination diet for inflammation. You know, myself and my partner Abby, the other dietitian in this group, we've spent years implementing individualized elimination diet protocols, and we have found that the success is unbelievable, whether it be those who are chronically ill all the way up to our professional athletes. Of course, it differs for each person, but we know it works, and we're here to tell you today why. Right?
Yep. So with our 4 points, starting with number 1, you know, there's so many foods out there that people think are healthy, and part of it is marketing, some of it is in the past lobbying. There's all kinds of different, you can read about a million things on why some of these foods are considered healthy. But when you're trying to reduce inflammation, what are the foods that are considered healthy that we should probably be cutting out? And maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on like why those foods are important to be taken out.
Sure. Well, that's why people get so defensive around the term elimination diet, because they think, oh my gosh, you're removing these staple food groups need for optimum health. And while I understand where they're coming from, the puzzle is just so much more complicated than people can ever begin to understand. You know, you're looking at environment, you're looking at genetics, you're looking at gut health. All of that plays a role. You're looking at the way that food was manufactured. You know, the wheat, dairy, and eggs today are not the same as the wheat, dairy, and eggs that your grandparents grew up with 60 to 70 to 80 years ago. And then you pair that manufacturing process now that's so different, and the quality of our soil that's so different, and the way that we treat our animals today, so different. You compound that on top of really poor gut health from stress, from junk food, from medications, from toxic environment, and you mix all that together. And then on top of that, those foods that are poorly manufactured are typically the foods we consume all day, every day. Many of us are consuming these foods at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's a recipe for disaster when the immune system is already on fire, and then you're putting those commonly eaten foods that were once healthy, they now become inflammatory.
Yeah, if you think about it, part of it's economical. In terms of industries have made foods cheaper to process.
Dairy and corn.
They've made wheat easier to harvest. They've bred it to be hardier so that they can get a more abundant supply. And when you get that and you change manufacturing processes, you get a lot more, so you can sell really cheap. And especially when you have a family or you're just on a tight budget, you know, those are foods we gravitate to because it's so much cheaper sometimes than maybe getting those pastured eggs or something like that.
Sure.
So a lot of it's economical, but those foods that tend to be a little bit cheaper tend to be of the lowest quality. And then we tend to, as you said, have them several times a day.
And that's often why they're removed. That's why you're seeing foods like eggs and peanut butter removed on elimination protocol. People don't understand that. And also, let it be known that the goal is not to have all of these commonly eaten foods removed for the rest of your life. In fact, if you feel so terrible when you eat all of those top allergens, it means there's still work to be done, whether we need to work on the environment you're living in, work on sleep stress, you know, gut microbes, the good has undergrown, the bad is overgrown. It's different for every person, but you need to correct the whole human being before you go back to eating those inflammatory foods.
So what's the rundown on the foods? You know the list off the top of your head. Can you run it down real quick for everyone?
Well, the elimination diet is totally different for every person, so it's not really fair to ask. But let's go with the most common, which would be eggs, peanuts, peanut butter, dairy, wheat, corn, soy. Now, some people will throw out, you know, they'll take shellfish out, they'll take alcohol, caffeine, beef, added sugar. It's a little different for every person, but in a nutshell, those core top allergens are what we remove.
You're good. You're really good. All right, point number 2. There's some other commonly healthy foods that we tend to gravitate to that can sometimes be inflammatory depending on which you buy or the quality. So chocolate, wine, and coffee. So these are a couple foods that, you know, we read the research and we hear the research, or we hear on the news like latest study shows that when you have dark chocolate you live longer, or wine has more antioxidants, that type of thing. And a lot of this is true, but again, it depends on the quality. So wine can be really full of junk if you get the wrong kind of wine. There's a lot of stuff, especially the larger processed wines, they'll actually add dyes to make sure it has a color that looks good in your glass. They'll add fillers and preservatives, all kinds of stuff. Same with coffee. A lot of coffee, the way it's been manufactured, how long it's been processed and sitting in a can be really moldy. So when you look for coffee, you want to look for one that is a low mold organic coffee. If you're looking for wine now, on an elimination diet, you might not be having alcohol, or you need to have a little bit once in a while, stress, whatever. Look for a locally grown wine that is going to be low in sugar. There's even a company called Dry Farm Wines that specializes in getting these wines from small wineries in Europe, and the way they're farmed, they're lower in sugar content, and they don't have any additives, and they're all naturally organic. So there's different ways you can find things. And the last thing is chocolate. Chocolate is all over the board in terms of quality. There is some very pure stuff. You should look at the ingredients and see just a couple of things on there. There can be a lot of other junk in there, so look for something that's more dark chocolate, and look for something that's high quality, just a couple of clean ingredients, preferably organic.
And long story short, some of these foods can be literally the most anti-inflammatory, antioxidant-rich foods on the planet, and they can also at the same time be the absolute worst, especially chocolate of all things. I mean, really, truly, good quality organic raw cacao is actually one of the most antioxidant-rich foods on the planet. But again, if you feel like with fillers, junk, mold, I mean, good luck. And again, I think it's worth noting that the reason why there's such a negative connotation around the removal of these foods and why these foods are so bad is because if your gut is in turmoil and you're not feeling well, you will not tolerate these foods well. You will be sick. You will be sensitive to the mold and the poor quality and the additives, versus the person, your cousin, your aunt, your mother, your brother, who is in perfect health and their gut is in great condition. They may not blink an eye. So that is why sometimes you hear, well, elimination diets are the answer. They're the mecca for all. And then you hear the other side of the fence saying, that's garbage, that's dangerous, you're removing vital nutrients. Why do they have that accent? I don't know. But that's the reason why you're hearing both sides of the fence.
Yeah, I mean, you use the term sometimes, the canary in the coal mine, and you and I have been those people where I remember it wasn't long ago that we had lunch with some people, and they cooked up some burgers and sweet potato fries, and there was some fresh fruit. Great. I had my burger without a bun, just wrapped in some lettuce. Seemed like a great lunch. An hour and a half later, I was like, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. And I said, Kai, it's sweet potatoes, and it was some grass-fed beef. Like, how could this possibly happen? You said, you know what? I think they were sweet potato fries that were from a bag. They were frozen, and sometimes those companies will add cornstarch to help make them crispier. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I had no idea.
Yeah.
And because corn is like my kryptonite. It kills me. And so everyone else seemed fine, but my immune system doesn't like it. So yeah, this is super interesting that you can have some foods that people are totally fine on, and other times, and they can be really healthy foods. Smallest thing can make them pretty bad.
Yes, and we should also mention, part 3 here is that antioxidant-rich foods are so incredibly important. So yes, some are good, some are bad, depends on who you are and your genetics, but a lot of times when people begin an elimination diet, they see the list of foods, they think, oh man, I don't have much to choose from, or they're not experienced in the kitchen, and they literally live off of rice, chicken, and broccoli for 6 weeks. And that is not great. You can't just remove those offensive foods and think, all right, day is done, I'm doing great. You have to implement and incorporate deep purples and reds and blues like berries and cherries and eggplant and grapes and turmeric and pineapple and ginger, right? The list goes on and on and on. We have so many articles we'll tell you at the end to read about this, but you have to bring in the good while you're removing the bad if you really want the most profound effect and you really want to feel your best. And of course, as a very highly experienced RD and PT, we can tell you there are so many conditions out there like IBS and fibromyalgia, to name a few, where that's just a result of chronic inflammation. That is why your doctor doesn't know where it came from or why you have it or what it means. Sometimes they're not even sure how to treat it, but that's because it's chronic, widespread inflammation, and you are someone who would benefit more than anyone by implementing this.
And that's really hard to test for. I mean, inflammation
Right.
A lot of times doesn't show up in testing. It doesn't show up frequently on X-rays or MRIs, or they just you got widespread pain, this type of thing. And I can't tell you how many patients I've seen, and I'm seeing them as a physical therapist, and I talk to them, and it's like, look, we need to work on nutrition. It's going to be hard for me to rehab you and get you back and reduce your muscular pain, reduce your joint pain that's happening all the time from running or whatever, if we don't clean up the diet. And I talk to them just a little bit about their diet. It's like, oh my gosh, like you're having inflammatory foods like every single day, all the time, and you're low in protein. This is going to be really hard. So it's really hard in the medical community, especially for a lot of physicians that have like 30 patients on their schedule. They don't have time to talk about that. But Got to focus on nutrition, try and reduce the whole body inflammation. It would make a miracle of a difference.
Right, and number 4, while we're still on the topic of inflammation, talk to us about animal protein. Is it good? Is it bad? Should it be removed or kept on an elimination diet plan?
So meat and seafood, is it inflammatory? Is it anti-inflammatory? And the answer is yes. Yes, it is anti-inflammatory, and yes, it can be inflammatory. It is both. It depends on the quality. It depends on what you're eating. So, I really like the term, you are what your animal eats, and we don't tend to think about this way. I mean, we're getting better, and you see more people trying to buy pastured eggs and things like that, but we don't tend to think how important it is if you have some chicken and it's been fed a bunch of grains, and they're junky grains that are moldy and they're full of pesticides and all kinds of that. How does that compare to pastured chicken, or even better, having some wild-caught salmon that hasn't been in drinking from water that has pesticides or glyphosate or different types of fertilizer that has been in the water supply? So the answer is yes, food or meat can be inflammatory, and yes, it can be anti-inflammatory. What do you want to focus on? You want to focus on a few things: wild-caught, grass-fed, and pastured. So whether it's your chicken or your beef, you want things that are roaming free and they are eating grass, they're eating what they naturally should eat. And preferably you want organic. Now if you want to be ultra clean, then you want to focus on some seafood, because when you focus on seafood, say some things like scallops or salmon, that is some of your highest quality stuff, that because those waters often have not been kind of damaged by man in any type of way. So even if you have some beef that's organic and grass-fed, a lot of times there's neighboring farms or water supply that can still have some other junk or pesticides in it. So I'm not saying not to eat grass-fed organic beef, but if you really want the highest quality, you want to look for some wild-caught seafood. That's the best. But lamb is amazing, bison is amazing.
Because they're naturally grass-fed, right? They're just living in their environment. It's like, you do you. You're eating grass, right? There's not much that's going to interfere with that. It's great for us.
Yeah, you're not going to see thousands of lambs jammed into something kind of like chicken. So it's a higher quality meat.
Sure, and we should also mention too that with the animal protein, if you enjoy it, that's great. If you don't enjoy it, that's fine too. But the rest of your diet matters, right? If you're eating mostly plant-based and you're implementing or you're incorporating good quality animal protein, that is outstanding. I mean, those are generally the healthiest individuals we see coming through our office, versus like if you're eating fast food and then you're putting even good quality animal protein on top of junk. I mean, it's just not really the balance that you want to fight that inflammation.
Mm-hmm. And we know that a lot of high quality food, especially meats and seafood, they can be more expensive, but think about the idea that you can pay your farmer or you can pay your pharmacist, and there's nothing wrong with pharmacists. We love pharmacists. We have pharmacists in the family, but I'd rather put my money towards high quality food than medications, which is what a lot of us will be on if we don't eat high quality food and we have stress and we don't take care of ourselves.
I tell my pro athletes, it's my nerdy joke here, an anti-inflammatory food a day keeps the dietitian away. I said it yesterday on the court. Felt pretty good about myself.
Good work.
Okay.
I hope they chuckle a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It was like a courtesy smile. Yeah.
All right, so we have tons of information on our website that can be used to supplement this. If you want to know what exactly is an elimination diet, you're just trying to figure that out, we have a blog post for that. If you're looking for a full elimination diet meal plan, we have our ultimate post that has this all detailed. How about some recipes? You want to know the best breakfast recipes? Did you know you can have some amazing recipes for breakfast
and dessert? And I created them just for you.
We have 2 posts on breakfast recipes and the most decadent elimination diet desserts.
7 options, yes.
So some awesome. I enjoyed tasting those when you made them. Then we have a couple posts on anti-inflammatory foods. We have the top anti-inflammatory breakfast foods, and we have the top most anti-inflammatory foods on the planet. Is that what it's called?
Yep.
All right. Anything else that I'm missing?
Nope, you got it.
All right, check us out on Instagram, check us out on Pinterest and Facebook. Get in touch with us, send us a DM if you have a question. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment on this video, we will answer it. And subscribe, share this with your friends so we can grow this channel and help more people. And that's all, folks.